Je m'appelle Catherine Mathis. C'est moi donc qui va mener cette discussion avec ces gens brillants. So thank you for being here. Wow. It's easy to have hope when we get to hear all those great things you're doing. I mean, I'm just a journalist. I mean, I'm just wasting my time, it seems. Wow. David, can I call you David?
No.
No? Okay.
Yes, of course.
I was going to tweet that I called you David. So you're an artist. You write books about creativity. Let the Elephants Run
Yes.
Was the title. So it's easy for you to be creative, really. Can creativity be learned? I mean, can we all be that creative?
I think of creativity as a learnable skill. I think of it much more like a methodology. My book is really a comparative between startup methodology that our entrepreneurs use and what I call creative thinking methodology, which is what I think artists use. And if you line up their methodologies, they're very, very similar. So I think that if you start in one genre and if you can separate your creative process from the genre that you work in, then you can apply that methodology to many different verticals. And creativity becomes just another way of thinking that you can apply to anything. So you can apply it when, I use the same creative process when I'm making a song or building a tech project or building a speech or writing a book. It's the same process. That? Well, it's longer than, yeah.
Tell us how to do it.
Well, I mean, there's a specific, startup methodology it's the same thing we do. It's you build small, minimal viable product, fast iteration, stage funding, and always thinking about how you're going to get to scale.
So, Audra, I'm turning to you because I'm thinking that kind of thinking should resonate with something that you're doing. I mean, it sounds like what you came up with could be applied to so many other things. I mean, can you solve other problems? Can you save the world? Could you do that? Because it seems that the process you came up with, I mean, is just brilliant and could be applied to many different sectors. Is that how you see it as well?
Well, I actually like to echo the process that David was talking about. We do the same thing internally. It's you pilot, minimum viable product. You work out the kinks, and then you start thinking about, how you can better that and how you can scale that. So in many ways, it's the same process. And once you have a team, for us, the team piece of it is really important. We have people from very different backgrounds of worldwide hearing. I mean, I come from a finance background. We have people that are engineers. We have people that come from arts and sciences, and I actually think in audiology and other fields. So that process of bringing people who think differently together is also part of that creative process for us. Can we save the world? That's a big question, but we can.
We're all hanging on your lips.
We can certainly. I think what's been very interesting for us is to start collaborating with other disability organizations, in particular Vision Loss. Mm-hmm. We're now collaborating with one of the biggest NGOs in physical handicaps, and a lot of the same things can be replicated. Not exactly, but I think some of the things we're working on. We're very eager to share the concept of a global hearing loss database with other parts of the disability world. So yeah, I do think there's a lot of things that we can share with the broader world.
Mm-hmm. And that also resonates with you, Cassie, and you, Evelyn. What you do is try to bring people from different backgrounds around certain, around the same objectives, the same goals, really. And you try to do it, for instance, by changing behaviors. And you started on something back there, and I wanted to know more, because you said it can be fascinating the way behaviors can change. How's that?
So you have these many levels of interaction that are developed. So for example, if you're creating a musical instrument and you have 4 themes, each of them are going to make a different instrument, and sometimes they don't really like to work in teams, but they'll make an instrument that somehow harmonizes with the other person. So that is like a new way that they're finding their interaction in like a calm manner. So it's not confronting, it's not intentional, it just kind of happens organically. And that's a kind of moment where I get shivers, because they couldn't necessarily communicate with words, but they used a different medium, and this activity, they learned how to use tech, they made an instrument, they learned how to communicate, and it was like non-intrusive, let's say.
And Cassie, I have to turn to you because in the same way you're trying to do it, but in a gendered way, could we say that way? Do you have to to shatter some mindsets in order to bring about change? I mean, is there some? Do you feel that there's some kind of obstacles during the way? I mean, are people open to learning code, or do you feel that it's still, that?
Well, technology is at the center of everything. Everyone knows that, everyone sees it, everyone feels it. So people come to Ladies Learning Code, mainly adults, and for Girls Learning Code, it's kids comes with their parents, so parents decide to come with their children. So those publics are really, they know that they have to, and that's important, and they come with an open mind, but it's all about perception. We really try to make activities that are fun, that are accessible. We want to show that it can really be easy and fun and creative to learn how to code. And with basic skills, you can do many, many things. And so that's empowering for them. It's a whole new discovery, and it gives them an optimistic view of technology, and that's what we do.
But if you cater to women, it's because you feel that that what's on the market does not, right?
Yeah, well, there's a shortage in the tech industry in terms of coders, but yeah, there's definitely less women than men in the field, and that's really sad. So it come from a long time ago, but we are working on that by creating inclusive spaces that we can talk to women, make them feel safe, inclusive to everyone, and we work among children because we want to show them at early age that it can be very, very interesting for them.
So it's all about the way that you present things, and I'm turning to you, David, because you talked a lot about story, and that you said it's a lot about the way that you tell the story. How does digital, the whole technology sector, help you tell stories differently? Because she can tell stories differently, you can tell stories differently as well. How so?
I mean, I think that as storytellers, we have to realize that we're living in a different world, right? This is a world where just information runs so fast, and the sheer amount of content is changing our ability to get retention for any specific story. So the path to scale is directly related into how fast things are moving. You have to be really thinking about the long tail of your project. It's not only about making it, but how you're going to get it out there, and how you're going to maintain momentum throughout the rest of the life of the project to really give it a life. Because, I mean, the way to think about media in this world is to think about your Facebook feed on your phone, right? Stories fly by.
What's wrong with that?
Well, stories fly by so quickly, right? They fly by so quickly. So, you can now see 10 amazing little documentaries on your phone every 2 minutes. So how do any of them have any retention, any traction, any meaning? And so for social impact, that really becomes a question of how you're going to hold on to the user and really gain traction for your idea.
So if I had to get to the main two words that best described your four presentations, I guess it would be story and data. And I'm turning to you, Audra, because you talked a lot about getting the right data to the right people. And how do you do that? How do you make sure that the right people get access to the data so that you can go forward with your own projects?
Yeah, so for us, it's a very important question. We're, as an organization, increasingly working at the ecosystem level. So we have our projects, but we also bring in the governments into the discussion. And that's really at the policy level side that data can have a big impact. It can have impact at all levels. But in our case, most governments do not know how much hearing loss there is in their country, even if many times there have been prevalence studies. So the first thing is to get in front of them and show them the data that does exist. Then the second step is, if that data does not exist, to start thinking about how we can generate it. And I just got back from Peru. I was in Peru last week, where we just launched the first screening campaign. We're screening 30,000 kids in Peru. And it's the first time we'll ever have data on the number of hearing loss kids with hearing loss. So we're having social impact, but while we're doing that social impact, we're also gathering data, and that data will then be used with the government and say, this is why you should have more programs geared to kids. So it's sort of a cycle.
and sometimes that cycle can be a byproduct. I'm looking to you, Casey, because I was listening to you, and I'm like, oh, empowering people is it's sort of your byproduct, because you're teaching code, really. But then there's this whole aura around the project, and same thing with you, Evelyn. I mean, you're teaching stuff to kids or to people, but really you're teaching them a sense of community. You're teaching them how to behave in society, really. I mean, isn't that part of the whole byproduct project?
Yeah, totally. Well, working in the tech industry, being part of the tech industry, you have to learn constantly. Everything is moving so fast, so the sense of community is super important, because we have to help each other. We have to work in team. It's learning how to code comes with learning how to work in a team. No one works alone in that field, and that's really part of what we teach. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the same with hardware. I mean, if you could learn how to fix a computer by like opening up the case and soldering a wire, why are we throwing away all those computers? And controlled obsolescence needs to be learned through manipulating hardware. So why not teach hardware really, really quickly to kids? It seems like a natural progression to empowerment. I mean, on my book.
I wanted to tell you there are microphones in the room, and so if you want to line up, are they there, or is somebody going to pass them along? I'm not sure. If you want to ask questions to any of the four panelists, feel free to line up, and we'll be getting to your questions very, very shortly. But if you have them in mind already, then please feel free to line up and so you have somebody there with a mic, so yeah, you can just raise your hands then, I guess. So what's been the biggest obstacle during the whole because you really had to change your whole mindset, really. I mean, you saw the way that the music industry was changing. You decided to head into it head on, and I guess I'm guessing it didn't go as smoothly as you thought it would be. How come you were able to kind of change the way you're thinking to tackle that on?
I mean, I think for me, when I got very, very interested in the internet and digital, and I was doing, the career was going great. I was living in New York City at the time, and but that interest in that curve, in why those lines were crossing, led me down this rabbit hole, right? And it opened up for me. It opened up the when you've been doing the same job the same way for a really long time, mm-hmm. It's very easy to
and
become.
It's been working.
It's been working. It becomes very easy to become complacent. You know what you know, and that's usually enough. You get a little bit better on the edges, but when you start to studying something brand new, and that curiosity gene starts to spark again, well, that opens up a whole new realm, and you start to remember what being curious is like. You start to remember what learning is like, and that curiosity-learning duo can take you to whole new places, right? And then that opens up. Once you get on that path, then all kinds of things can open up. Yeah.
But you have to be a risk taker. I mean, Audra, I can just imagine the first time that you came up with the idea. I mean, did you have trouble convincing people that this was a worthwhile project? I mean, you must have to change some mindsets early on, right?
Yeah, so our supporters, we were very much on board and had the same vision. I think the challenge sometimes for us has been bringing our field partners along, mm-hmm. or bigger institutions that are used to doing things in a certain way, and we're like here, and they're asking us a question about whether it's a good idea to capture data on a tablet. I'm just going, like that to me is such an obvious thing that's been done for the last 10 years. But sometimes you have to, so for me it was sort of taking a step back and thinking, okay, there's also an education process here. We move fast as an organization, but we have to make sure that we're bringing other people along and taking the time to really explaining why this is important. In healthcare specifically, there is a big gray zone that no one really has a great answer to right now, which is patient confidentiality. Mm-hmm. So we're very strict about abiding by the latest protocols of, in the US is called HIPAA, and Ontario's PHIPAA, all these protocols to make sure that we're also on the cutting edge of everything happening on the legal and confidential side. So, these have been some of the things we've had to think about along the road.
You touched on something very important, and I think that's very dear to Cassie, is the whole digital literacy issue, because obviously you're not always talking to people that have the same comprehension of the same issues. How far along are we, or how backwards along are we in that whole sense? I mean, what are the needs in that sense of digital literacy?
Well, digital literacy, it's basically learning how to code, but how to behave on the internet, how to behave with technology. So,
There's a gap.
There's totally a gap, and it's growing, and it can be scary when we think about it. So that's why it's important to have different initiatives where people can know more, learn more, be in contact with technology in a fun and reach out with storytelling, reach out to them to learn, to make them feel that it is important, it is for them, and it's reachable and it's accessible for them.
Mm-hmm. And you guys are accessible. So if anybody has a question, please take your time, and you have somebody here with a mic. You can just raise your hand, and the person will gently give you the mic so that you can ask your question, because you have the chance to be able to ask a question to these four brilliant people who are really doing great things, very inspiring things. Do we have any questions in the room? Do I see any hands coming up? Everything is so crystal clear. Yeah, there. Hi.
I'm a Concordia graduate from design. I was just wondering about the Human Impact Lab, because there's talk about social impact, but my idea of social impact doesn't necessarily involve something that's viable. And I'm wondering, how do you incorporate the idea of social impact, or this lab, into the community in non-viable ways? Because social cultural type of ideas are very hard to identify as a number.
So you're saying you have an idea you want to execute?
No, I'm wondering if you guys have any projects that tie in with the community that aren't necessarily dealing with issues that can promote or generate income.
Can you have social impact and be rich?
Yeah, is that
okay.
possible?
Do you mean...
That's a good question, but because you're talking about the idea of the startup and the idea of...
I'm talking about startup methodology, right? I'm talking about the methodology of the startup, but imposing that methodology on the world of ideas. So it's using a different methodology, taking it out of the world of business, but using that same process very meticulously on social impact ideas, which really aren't about business at all. It's just a process that you use. You could call it anything. You could call it creative thinking. But using that process to really think how we're going to scale ideas up. It's not about making money off the ideas, but scaling them up. Just a different way of looking at them.
But that's a good question, though. I mean, let's do a little philosophy here. Is it okay to make money off of an idea that wants to have social impact? Anyone?
It's
Can we be rich and nice at the same time?
I would say absolutely. If you want to drive this world forward, that biggest change is going to come out of the private sector. If companies can start doing good and make money at the same time, that's what's really going to drive the change, in my opinion. So, absolutely.
I think you got the quote of the night right there.
Well, partly because otherwise you're spending all your time raising. You're raising money endlessly, and raising money is a hard thing to do. It's hard enough to work on the ideas, never mind trying to raise money to work on the ideas.
Very nice. Thank you for that question. Is there another question that we can get to? Don't be shy. And if you want to ask in French, I can always translate. Yeah, over there.
Thank you. I'm just going to continue this conversation, so not another question, but rather maybe profound it a little. Social impact is often perceived as a non-profit, and there's the social bashing, meaning that a private sector will apply a social mission in order to be perceived. a social impact. But I think there's business models that are building up today that works for both. Meaning there's profit, but there's also social impact. Sure. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a very common thing in the art world to have two structures and have vase communicant between the two structures. So one of them helps raise money and gives back to philanthropists, for example, but then you have a corporate company that helps feed the OBNL, and then they develop products and they create this cycle in between the three. That's a very common model. I've seen this as B Corp sometimes as well, and there are new ways right now being investigated where makers are invited to be part of or to be building their own space inside a space, like more organically. So there's new cases out there that will, eventually arise on the surface pretty quickly.
Is that something that you're trying to do?
I would like to try to do that, yes. Yeah. I feel like workshops have this this potential of really building a more solid community. They're a way to let go, and they're a way to, do problem solving on different things with people. So yeah, I feel that would be an interesting case.
So we've actually done that. We had a spin-off from Worldwide Hearing called Ear Access. It's a social enterprise. It's a for-profit, and it was created because of this funding issue. We said, if we're going to reach 1 billion people, there's not enough donor money out there in the world to even reach, there's not a lot of money in hearing loss to begin with. So it would really start with the mission of how do we think about affordable hearing aids at scale. So it has a bit of a separate mission, but it's very complementary. And the goal is also to support Worldwide Hearing and its initiatives as it scales. So, this sort of hybrid or dual model, I think, things are evolving. And I think it's no longer business as usual or nonprofits as usual. I think things are evolving. And at the end of the day, it's what is your finality? If you want to get to point X, what is the best vehicle to get there at scale? And that's, I think, how we have to think about things. And sometimes it's a for-profit, and sometimes it's a non-profit, but it's no longer so black and white. I think things are evolving.
Very interesting. Thank you. Thank you for that question. See, you had a question and you had an answer. That's great. Yeah, go ahead.
Oui, bonsoir. Je vais y aller en français. Marie-Claire de Concertation Montréal, travaille sur le mouvement montréalais, les filles et le code. Je voulais juste ajouter à la question du gap. On voit à travers tous les secteurs que 80% des personnes qui travaillent dans le tech, whatever the tech, des gars. Dans les 40 dernières années, déclin des femmes, masculinisation de l'intervention, de la profession, finalement. On a commencé le focus group avec des adolescentes et quand on leur dit comment réagissez-vous à la technologie, ça crée de la guerre. Ça crée des jeux vidéo qui donnent des cauchemars à mes petits frères. C'est mauvais. Pourquoi tu veux que je fasse la tech? C'est mauvais. Et Cassie l'a dit, on veut aussi former des filles qui vont intervenir dans le monde. 45% des professions et des métiers vont être dans le tech. Les femmes sont absentes du développement du futur de cette planète parce qu'elles sont absentes de la technologie. Il y a vraiment une urgence d'agir là-dessus. D'où le mouvement qu'on veut partir, puis on espère y rallier beaucoup de la communauté tech de Montréal parce que c'est pas possible. Là. Il y a un gap énorme entre le désir des filles qu'on a interviewées, en tout cas, de faire du bien, de changer le monde, et qu'on leur dit, est-ce que tu penses que le tech peut t'aider à faire du bien? Ah, il n'y avait pas pensé. Ah, ben oui, OK, d'abord, ça m'intéresse. Puis on avait pensé y aller par la mode, la cuisine, mais c'est pas ça. Elle veut contribuer à la collectivité. C'est pour ça que je suis intéressée à ce que vous faites au Human Lab, par exemple, changement climatique. Je suis sûre qu'elle accrocherait là-dessus tout de suite, parce que c'est ça qu'elles veulent. Elles veulent être inspirées de la technologie pour être capables de l'utiliser pour changer le monde et faire du bien.
Je vais juste traduire une petite partie de ce que vous avez dit. So tech can be for good. But it seems that answer doesn't come up first. She was talking about the girls and the women that they cater to, and it seems that there's a negative perspective on technology when they're first asked about it. So it's interesting that it doesn't come up it doesn't come to mind up first that tech can do good.
Yeah, it's often something that we hear, that girls aren't in the field because they are interested. It's okay. Did you want to be in it? They are not interested by it. It's okay. They don't have to. No, they don't have to. The problem is they don't know what they don't know. When we can talk about social media, we can talk about laptops and phones and YouTube and social media and Instagram for hours. But when we switch and we ask them what code is, what programming is, they don't even make the connection. They talk about Morse code. They talk about the matrix. They talk about like the code for their locks on their leur casier. So code is not even related to tech. They don't make the connection. They know nothing about it, or almost nothing. They were caught up on the fake news stuff, so algorithms are really bad. And so with a pitch of 2 seconds, when I told them I am a front-end developer, I do website, I do web applications.
Are you a bad person?
Yeah, and I use them for good. And you can do a lot of things. And when I talk about all the startups that are in Montreal, all the projects that we are working in, it takes literally 2 minutes. And they are so interested, and it's like, oh, well, I didn't know. Where can we start? And so it's amazing to see the spark in their eyes when they get that, and then they want in. So it's really a matter of perception to create events, to create opportunities for teenage girls to be able to be in contact with technology and get an optimistic view of it.
Yeah. Turn consumers into doers, really, is what you're doing as well, Evelyn.
Yeah, very much so. The same way girls, you know, they learn how to move a motor with a battery, and then they can have a robot make machines that draw for her, you know. That's simple, pretty cool. And very empowering. Yeah.
That is pretty cool. Right. I want to learn that.
Yeah.
It's only for kids?
I started doing it for adults too. But yeah, the world needs a lot of healing right now, and making music for me is a temporary fix to all of this. Like talking about technology, how we can recycle machines instead of throwing them in bins, and making them instruments, or making them have a second voice so that they can express themselves, and you know, remind ourselves that we can be creative about hardware is where, I mean, it's complementary and intertwined to code, obviously, but yeah, I don't know where I was going with this.
I don't know, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Do we have another question in the room? Yeah? Go ahead.
Well, thank you. Sorry for my English first.
Voulez-vous la poser en français puis je la traduis? C'est comme vous voulez.
Allez-y. Comment vous vous sentez face à la transformation sociale de la cyberculture? Puis quel problème vous avez?
I wish you'd ask that in English. So how do you feel about consuming what? About
the transformation of society in the cyberculture, the influences, the issues at the same time?
No, I'm sorry.
Are you talking about like Black Mirror stuff?
So how society is translating into cyber culture? Exactly. Right. See, I get it. I just need a couple times, and then I'm going. I'm good to go. So, how does that? Is there? Because we talked about a gap before. There's a gap between society and cyber culture, and obviously you're trying to bridge that gap. But then you have to work with people that have nothing to do with cyber culture, and you have to work with people that are only immersed in cyber culture. So how do you work with all that?
I think it's really an opportunity. It's not, oh, boo, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, you don't know. It's more, oh, you don't know, so I get to tell you all about it. And it's really keeping an open mind about and reminding that there was a time when we didn't know. There was a time when we didn't have internet. There was a time where...
I know. It's crazy, I know.
So it's important to take this opportunity to teach and give information, or redirect where medias and places where they can know more about what we do and what's out there for them.
See, it's funny you should say that because I know you code, I know you're a developer and everything. I don't code, and I feel a little ashamed. I mean, should we all be coding? I mean, is that the next literacy? I mean, should we all doing that because we're going to be missing a part of the puzzle in the next 10, 20 years?
Well,
that's what you want us to do, right?
Well, of course it would be, but the goal is for people to be able to be builders, to contribute to the technology, to the internet. It's people to feel safe, to know what they're doing, what's happening. That's what's required, that's what's important. If there's coding in that, it might be, then it is, but if they know how it works, you know how it works, you know all about it, even if you don't code. You're a reference in the field, you're everywhere.
Not so much, but thank you. Thank you so much.
But you know a lot about it, even if you're not coding, and you're participating, and you're helping people to know more about everything.
I'm telling people to code, but I don't code. See, do what I say, not what I do.
So that's about it. If people can feel empowered to contribute to the media, to their community, through technology, then we're okay.
Do you all code? Who codes here? Only her?
I don't. But it's a choice, right? I mean, code is a language.
Yeah.
It's a language that you can choose to learn a lot, or you could learn to play the piano. I mean, it's just different. It's what your interest set is. I mean, I want to find out more about your program because I think my girls might be interested in going. But it's all these things are a choice. So when you were talking about, you know, these are things that I think that there's a big disconnect between sort of people that are on the frontiers of technology and a large user base and a large group of people that are living. I mean, that's what's happening in the United States right now. If we look at what's happening in the United States, there's a huge disconnect, right, between what is considered to be the intelligentsia and people that are, you know, having trouble getting a job and making a living. And that is for me, that's the big disconnection point, right? And that's the gap that we really need to, or that I think is really important to look at.
De mon côté, pour répondre à la question, je crois que pour les personnes malentendantes, c'est super. Parce que finalement, ça leur donne une voix. On voit de plus en plus de communautés malentendantes qui peuvent maintenant coder, se connecter. Donc, dans notre domaine en particulier, c'est super intéressant. Et puis, c'est très rassembleur. Et ça donne l'opportunité de donner des chances égales à tout le monde. Donc, dans notre domaine en particulier, à ce niveau-là, c'est plutôt les autorités, tout ça, qui ont plus de mal à adopter les nouvelles technologies, mais au niveau des personnes malentendantes, c'est vraiment génial.
Merci pour cette question. Est-ce qu'il y en a d'autres qui aimeraient poser une question? Oui. Et après ça, on va à l'arrière, je vous ai vu.
Hello? Okay, it's working. Well, you said earlier that the main problem in solving hearing loss was getting the right data, and in order to help people and have the support of the government, right? But do you actually believe that technology can solve most of our problems? I mean, like, don't you actually believe that the level of the development of the country will actually have a big influence on how that technology will affect most of the people? I mean, like, you've mostly spoken about developed countries and South America, but like, if we talk about Africa, do we even actually have real data? And how can you actually get that data when most of the countries are going through crisis today?
Well, so a couple answers to that. I don't think I'm a big believer in technology, but I'm also a big believer in people. And technology without people in our field, nothing happens. So it's really important to also, while you're using technology, is also to empower local people, to have rehabilitation. The human contact is very important as part of what we're building. When we're building a teleaudiology platform, it's really people to people, and there's a training component that goes into that. The question is, data is not an objective in itself, it happens in parallel. So our approach has been, well, there's nothing in this country, let's start somewhere, let's start small, let's build from there. as we're doing it and as we're helping kids get access to hearing aids or screenings in schools, let's capture that data and let's share little by little what we're finding. So it's not, all these things happen in parallel. And I think it can be overwhelming in some countries where we do work in places that are very poor, but you have to start somewhere. And I think that's what I would encourage all of you to do is don't think about how overwhelming the problem is, just start somewhere. The best thing you can do is start getting something done.
Wow, if you're not empowered after that, I don't know what it takes. There was a question over there, yeah.
So, hi, I'm Jonathan. I have a question. Evelyn DiGimini mentioned that we can fix computers that are going to trash and maybe like do less trash. And David, you mentioned that the POC 21 would only, give us 6 years. So I'm curious if we know what would give us 100 or a few more, turning the trash into recycling. Is that one of the lead options to healing the earth? Or
I personally feel very strongly about this, yes, and we've actually prototyped this with Centre d'intégration scolaire, where the kids had to basically tear down computers. And it was very satisfying for them because they have a lot of anger to channel through. They are very unlucky in their lives in general. Sometimes they have to fight with their parents to get through the door in the morning to get to the school, which they have to travel 3 hours on a bus for. So by the time they get there, they are very edgy, and tearing shit down just feels so satisfying. But they learn across doing that how all of the mechanics work, how they can repurpose these and eventually make other machines with it. And, because of their financial, unluckiness, let's say, they can think about new ways of repurposing the casing so that suddenly you have like a brand new couch that was basically made from water bottles, which were, going to waste, and just suddenly, with a little bit of wool over it, which the teachers will teach them how to knit, they cover these computer cases with water bottles on them, and then suddenly they have furniture that they can sit on for their classrooms. It's at that level.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Oh, there's a question over here. Was there a question back there before? No, yeah? Okay. We'll get to you afterwards.
Hi. So David, I really liked the image of water you used when talking about ideas, and it reminded me of this quote I read where the power in the 21st century lies in those able to navigate irrelevancies of information rather than actually knowing valuable information. And I find that sort of mentality, has created either a sense of cynicism or disillusionment or detachment. And I guess in a sense, how can you convey your messages of social impact without necessarily resorting to shock value? Or do you have to use shock value? Have you seen cases in which that has happened without shock value and been successful?
Messaging is really difficult, because
Yeah.
you need to show problem, but you need to show solution.
Mm-hmm.
So you're always trying to think on these two paths. How do we, if you look at the climate change data, it's terribly frightening.
Mm-hmm.
You were asking what the solutions are. The solutions are incredibly difficult. And the way it works is we're on an exponential curve, right? The longer we wait for a solution, the harder solution gets. There is the possibility, there's the other side of the coin, the singularity argument that technology is going to, the exponential curve of technology is going to save us, but I'm not going to count on that. So the way we
But you can't say that way to people, right?
No, no, exactly. You don't want to say that. We have.
We can't.
We're not going to trust in the exponential growth of technology. But so what we talk about is always trying to show the problem, but think about the solution as well, and try and show those two aspects. Like with rising seas is quite terrifying when you really look at it. But the secondary piece is what the Bay Institute's solution is, which is to do. To reflood the salt flats, create marshes, change the levee depths, and so we build a solutions piece on the end of the installation, So, I mean, story, you're trying to walk people through a story that hopefully can give them something to grab onto in some sort of direction, maybe. But with climate change, I think that it really is the urgency is scary but important to talk about.
Yeah, so you can't get away from the shock effect, really. Is that what you're saying? I mean, you don't have to.
I mean, we're obviously not scared enough, right? It's very apparent we're not scared enough, because if we were, we would be doing more. Mm-hmm. Policy-wise, we would be doing more. So yeah.
Okay. All right. We have time for one last question over there. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey there. So I work at l'Itinéraire, which is a street newspaper sold by homeless people. First off, I just want to say that I'm glad that we see that technology is serving the community, because, every day when you hear about Facebook, Google, and everything, that's not really what we see, so I'm glad it serves the community. Social impact is a big challenge for us and for other non-for-profits, because we have money that comes from the government, that comes from businesses, that comes from foundations and everything. And they're asking more and more about what's your social impact, like how many people are getting out of the street, etc., etc. So that's a big challenge, because the work that we do and the work that most, well, not necessarily most, but a lot of non-for-profits do is the human side. Like, what's the human side? Changing someone's life, like a human lab. It's not. There's a lot of things that are not necessarily data that can't be measured, but that have to be measured in a way. So I don't know if you can give us advice of how to measure the human side, how to measure how you change someone's life. Otherwise, from that data, from a big data, climate and money and everything.
Wow, we're ending on a high note.
We actually went through, I'd love to answer that question, because we went through that process ourselves. People were saying, so you provide hearing aids and you provide a number of children screened, but what's the long-term impact on their lives, and how are those people, how is that bettering their lives? So we actually ran a 2-year study in Guatemala, the first one of its kind in the field of hearing loss, to measure the long-term impact of a hearing aid. We asked 130 questions, everything from mental health to poverty impact to self-confidence, anyways, a whole bunch of questions. And it was really interesting, because in the process we fit 200 people with hearing aids, we had a control group. Anyway, so we went through that whole process, and I'm happy to chat more after this if you want about how we did that. We worked with the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine in the UK. It was a very interesting process. And at the end of it, we came out with 3 data points that really mattered. One was in mental health, reduction in depression of 83% among people who had received a hearing aid, 86% increase in self-confidence. And these were, I would say those were really the 2 ones, and a considerable impact on maintaining income as well. So, sometimes it takes this really lengthy and sometimes costly exercise to do it. I don't always recommend you go that route. It depends on what you really need. But for us, it was a huge learning process, because sometimes you don't even know who you're serving, what's their level of income. It actually gave us all kinds of insights into what we did as a service and how to actually better that service. So these kind of impact studies are sometimes a good way to measure those things, and to be able to then correlate your outputs, which is number of people helped in the street, with long-term impact. And I think that's a growing trend in this field. I would also caution you to, some donors will ask for that, and that doesn't necessarily mean you need to go through that whole exercise. So you have to make a decision as an organization about what it is that's important, and have that conversation and sort of educate the people supporting you as well. So the human stories, there are pieces of the human stories you're never going to be able to quantify. And I also love data and I love quantification. But some of it will remain stories, and I think that also has to be part of the equation.
Thank you so much for that question. Very nice. Now's the time where you get to look at your phones. I know you've been hunching to look at your phone all the time. Now you get to do it, because we're going to have some questions here up on the screen behind me. And so you get to obviously get to your Wi-Fi with the password. And if you go to WOOC Lab, intersections, we're gonna be posting questions on there, and you can answer them live so that we can read them and answer them right here with our panel. So, can we? Is everybody logged in? You can just first of all get the Wi-Fi and then go to WooClap intersections. So the first question. Is digital literacy becoming a basic skill? So from everything you've heard tonight, is that something that you feel? So yes and no. You can just answer straight on your phone, and then sooner or later we'll be seeing the answers. See, we've got 8 answers so far. I'm not sure which way it's going. 9 answers are coming in. 10. Isn't it fun? You get to see it live. So I still don't know how you guys feel, but I know you're answering, so that's all good. 17, 19 answers. Eventually, we'll get to the answers themselves, but I'm still not sure how you guys feel. I get a feeling how you feel, but oh, there you go. So it's a pretty optimistic crowd that we have here. So yeah, so digital literacy is becoming a basic skill. So good on you, Cassie. You did good. You did good. People are convinced. So yeah, 90% of the votes are going towards more digital literacy as a basic skill. So that's great. So we have some 30-odd votes. Second question, do advantages outweigh the threats of digital innovations? Because, we haven't touched much on that tonight, but there are threats. There are security problems, security breaches, and so on and so forth. You touched on some of that with the confidentiality issue. Obviously, you touched on that as well when you said people are afraid of technology sometimes. So do advantages outweigh the threats? Is the question that we're asking. And see, the answers are just pouring in, 31 answers already. And so yes, more advantages than threats. And so yeah, I think that the one thing that we can take home tonight is that with a little creativity and technology, you can go a long way, really. You can totally reinvent a way of doing things in different sectors. So great, 42 answers for yes, advantages absolutely outweigh threats. And one last question before we let you go. Should technology have a social impact? I'm guessing what you're going to answer to that one, or else you're in the wrong room. So yeah, 30 questions are pouring in. Should technology have a social impact? Est-ce que la technologie devrait avoir un impact social? So, you can always answer good question, but I'm eager to find out what you answered. So we should be getting your total answers pretty soon because we've got 50 answers. You really liked that question, didn't you? So yes, no, or good question. some humor from our organizing committee here. So should technology have a social impact? Yes, it should. We've heard lots of inspiring stories. Now is the time to go back, have a drink, and talk to these wonderful people who really are doing brilliant things. So thank you for being here. Thank you for all those stories. Thank you. Have a great night.